Hello, hello, hello.
Hey.
Hello.
I am here with Vic and Anastasia,
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna start this thing off real quick because we got a lot to release. And so let's just start off with Anastasia. Why don't you introduce yourself? Because Vic's been on here already.
That's true. That's
So-
true. I better start talking before Vic takes all the time. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm Anastasia, Vic's wife. I am a wife, a mother, super passionate about a lot of things, but specifically women, something that we want to dive into today, right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for the honor and looking forward to our conversations.
Love it. We're honored to have both of you on here because last time Vic killed it
Yeah.
and people loved it. And so, like anybody, some people just love Vic.
Yeah.
So obviously they're gonna love
Yeah.
you because you're just an extension of Vic. So
Right.
now I got two Fomenkos on the mic.
It's dangerous. We might
Yeah.
start interrupting each other.
And this is actually the first time we're doing 3 mics this time. So
First for everything.
we're going for it. It's first couple.
It's a trinity over here.
Yep. I got the whole thing
Let's
going
do
on.
this.
So this is completion right here that we have going on. And so part of completion is the like dynamic between marriage.
That's right.
And so why don't we actually talk about very shortly just like the story of you guys before marriage. Yeah? I think that's a good place to start because we should kind of go into that.
Should we start with me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I actually grew up, just fell in love with Jesus at a young age. At 5 years old, just really started to experience God. And I knew the Lord, but when it came to purpose and destiny, I always feared being in the spotlight, feared stepping out. And I think culturally, just in my upbringing, that was not affirmed or encouraged. And so it's something that I was deathly afraid of, but I knew at some point the Lord would call me to that. And I think it's beautiful because marriage was actually, specifically marrying Vic, helped me go on this journey of facing those fears and discovering why and what it was the Lord had put on the inside of me. And when you're married, you'll know this, but it's like having a magnifying glass in your life because this person sees right through you. They see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and really start to call things out. And I think what Vic did was really start to go to those broken places in my life of why I was afraid of certain things, and started to really help me go on this journey of discovering, hey, you are meant for so much more. And so I think, in the first probably 3 years of marriage, that was a really deep journey. It was painful, but it was like painfully good for me because it was ultimately the Lord calling me out, but using Vic in that process. And so thank God for his gift of even just seeing that, and his gift of communication to be able to identify what was really in me. Like, I think he saw me by the Spirit. He saw me the way I didn't see myself. And, it's really the Holy Spirit. And so I think that it was oftentimes not a very pretty journey, but really God used him in my life to allow me to see how the enemy was actually most of my life trying to silence my voice, and started to bring that out of me. So thank you, babe.
Yeah. I'll add to that as well. I think that we've been married for 12 and a half years now, going on 13. But I think the first few years of marriage, I didn't know how to probably draw the best out of you. And, even as a testimony, like, I think because for me, some of the insecurities and fears and things that I walked through, I thought I was pretty confident, but I didn't know how much brokenness I had. Kind of like you said,
Right.
Marriage is a magnifying glass. But the brokenness in me was I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that I was worthy and all that kind of stuff. And so that I projected kind of like some of my self-insecurity, self-hate, kind of like, I don't know, like I would talk down to myself a lot. I had really, really high expectations for myself. Other people I would have grace for, but not myself as much. And so I think getting married, I became really comfortable with you, almost like myself. So then some of that, I think, negativity, criticism, correction,
You were
not
trying
being,
to perfect me.
yeah, I was trying to improve because I think
In the best way.
the lie that I believed
Yeah.
was that, where I'm at is not good enough. And so I always need to grow and improve. And the thing is, we need to grow and improve, but I think it was it to a place where I was causing brokenness both in me and in you. And actually it was interesting, like when I first met you, like a few years before we were married, and then just watching you as we dated, as we were engaged, I think I watched you go from like a leader that I felt like was more confident. You had like a stage presence. You led a small group. You were a worship leader. And so at least in my perspective, like I thought you were pretty confident and had your voice.
Yeah.
And then when we got married, I think through me like pointing out some of the nitty gritty stuff, I felt like after a few years, I actually shut you down.
Yeah. Well, I think you sent me on a deeper journey
Yeah.
because I had that because I was in a comfort of, the church I grew up in, the people that really knew me. But then you kind of pulled me out of that in marriage, and I became this insecure a person that was trying to discover who I was because I didn't have, my youth group and my status and all of these different things. But it did send me on a deeper journey.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's like the Lord even used that, like your brokenness to really develop me at a really crucial time in my life.
So kind of like what happened was, when did you guys move? Because the move to Texas, right?
Yep. We had to move to Texas
So
about
right after marriage,
a year and a half or so
after
into
the
marriage.
marriage. Okay, year and a half.
Yep.
Where did you guys live for the first year and a half?
In Seattle. So we were part of a church plant there, Image Church. Yep.
And so just like immediately, Anastasia, you were just out of your element,
Right.
Just total unfamiliarity, right? And it
Right.
was what church was this? It was City Bible, right?
Actually, Image Church up in
Image
Seattle.
Church. Oh,
So
okay.
so Anastasia went through, she left her family, a baby of 14 kids, really close with her family, left her church, her ministry, like everything she knew, everything she was familiar with, really kind of left that and moved to a new city, a new church plant. Like we had already kind of planted the church, and so kind of got thrown in. So I think it was a combination of things. Like I was figuring out who I was. You were trying to figure out your new identity, being married to me, And I think it was like this season where, man, like the first couple years of marriage, even like probably the first 4 or 5 years of marriage, like at the time I would have been like, man, our marriage is awesome. But looking back compared to like where we've grown now, it's like, man, it was rough. Like we struggled, like we went through some serious like tensions in terms of like rubbing and all that kind of stuff.
I think it was a lot of deep soul stuff that we needed to face. And I'm so glad we did early on because that set us up for where we are today. That really, really set me on a journey of inner healing that I had no idea I needed because, in my culture, it was like, oh, you're going through stuff, just, put it under the rug, sweep it, and you're good. You're good. Praise God. Hallelujah. You're good. And so the Lord really taught me to be honest in that season, to really, really identify brokenness and deal with it head on. And so it's amazing because when we did, by the time after Texas, we moved to Ventura, that's where that deep work had continued. And so after that year, I think I was always a Christian. I was always in the church, but for the first time in my life, I tasted freedom like never before. And so for me, it just completely unraveled me and put me on a journey of just such hunger to see the same in other people. And so that's when I really, really started to understand how important freedom and healing internally is. And so I think that all of that really brought us to that place.
Yeah, I think what happened was, as in your childhood, there was obviously some like trauma and things like that happened in your life that we didn't kind of know how to deal with. So we got married, and I think instead of me necessarily like, especially those first probably like 3 to 4 years until we got to Ventura and started the kind of that healing journey through like Genesis process for both of us, we didn't really know like how to. I didn't know how to like probably like speak life over you, draw your voice out, draw who you really were out. Because I think marriage started exposing some of the stuff that was easy to mask before. Because it's like before, like you had everything together, worship, leader, small group leader, leader in the church.
You can have a good image as a single person and get away with it. In
Totally.
marriage, it's like...
And then same for me as well.
Right.
Like, I was involved in things. And so like on the outside, it's like, man, here are these two amazing Christian leaders involved in ministry in their church together. It's going to be amazing. And then all of a sudden the magnifying glass comes on, and all of a sudden
Their souls
our
are falling
brokennesses
apart.
and the holes in your soul start to get magnified. And you're like, wow, I thought I was good.
Yeah.
And I think some of the stuff that like you had gone through and thought that you were healed, delivered, set free, then all of a sudden started coming to the surface and light. And I think I didn't know how to be there for you initially for the first few years of marriage. And then later on, I think as we healed, I think the Lord showed us some amazing lessons of how to actually speak life and encouragement
Right.
over someone so that they actually start to blossom, how to like water someone with your words, your affirmation, your grace, so that they can flourish and become who really they were. And I think we haven't seen the real Anastasia, like who God's really called you to be. I think more and more and more recently over the last, few years, and especially even like more recent, you've started to really blossom and flourish into who you really are. But that's taken years and years of a journey.
And I think even just looking back, the enemy is always after destiny in seed form. And so looking back now at my journey, I see, like I was even having a conversation with my mom yesterday, and she reminded me of her pregnancy with me, because I'm pregnant right now. And she was talking about what the doctors had told her about me and how I was going to be deformed and all these different things, that she had a lot of deficiencies in her body and how I was going to be mute. And then as a severe stutterer as a kid, which a lot of people don't know this, I was a hardcore stutterer. And I could see how all of that was the enemy's way of choking me out and not at seed form. But yet I love that God still takes all of that and gives and almost my platform came out of that broken place. It was like, that was my testimony. That was, my journey. And so purpose tends to be revealed through those,
through the attacks of the enemy.
Yeah.
So like at a young age, probably what age were you when you started to stutter?
So when I started to speak, when I started to talk,
okay,
up till age 15, it was really strong. And then I really, really started to really just go at it with there was a lot, like I went to therapy, and it's funny. They always told me that if I, to sing my words, which was ironic because I was singing too. So it's funny. The Lord really used worship to bring healing, because they're like, when your vocal cords are stressed, you start singing your words. So like, hello, my name is Anastasia, because you get silenced when you start to speak. It's like your voice locks. And so they taught me to sing my words. And I just think that's beautiful, because God actually used singing and worship in my life to help set me free and see others be healed and free. So
I'm curious. So like initially, like from the start of marriage, right? Because those were probably the formational years.
yes.
Like what were some of the lies that maybe you had encountered through that 5-year period, right? 5 years or 3 years?
As far as what?
Just like lies, or maybe things that you
got
took
it.
with you, and like
You're talking about in the first years of our marriage together?
that maybe
Got it.
like, because I think a lot of people could easily relate to that, especially in the beginning, because obviously it's a big transition period for the
Right.
rest of your life. You're partnering with somebody. And so anytime you start working with somebody, things are bound to come up.
right. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean,
you?
I think one of the biggest lies that we believed is that you marry someone, and then you see potential in them, and you're like, wow, like they're gonna improve more and more and more, and you almost like you sometimes you believe the lie that like they're gonna get more amazing and they're gonna grow, and I'm marrying someone, but they're on a journey.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we almost like have this expectation of our spouse that the weaknesses that we see, like we're almost blinded to them initially, like in dating and engagement. And you're like, oh, they're working through, they're going to grow out of it. And so we sometimes almost marry and expect the potential rather than the reality. And then I think it's that expectation that eventually sets you up for a lot of frustration. Because when you're like, after a few years, you're like, yo, this hasn't really changed. And you weren't cool with marrying someone with where they're at. You wanted them to marry, like the expectation of that. So I think one of the lies
Most people aren't, though. If you're honest, like even in premarital counseling, when we did premarital counseling, when you ask a couple, hey, are you okay with marrying this person and them not changing?
anything.
because most people are thinking about potential. I mean, I was. I'm like,
give it 10 years.
Look at this Bible teacher. He's so amazing. He loves the Word of God. He's gonna transform the world.
Yeah, sometimes he's mean here and there, but like that's no big deal,
Right.
you know. And you look, you look over certain things, and then I think you're surprised and disappointed. And I think the key isn't that like, hey, like don't get married until you find the right person. I think people are on a journey, but I think what I learned was to, now that I've learned is like, hey, like actually if I don't have an expectation, but I just become love, then I won't be disappointed. No matter what happens, I'm not disappointed. I don't need my wife to change.
Yes.
I'm just going to continue to be transformed in the image of God, and I'm going to be good no matter what is before me. And I think that's a healthier perspective to come into marriage. But I think that's one of the big lies that kind of like we believed early on, probably.
Absolutely.
Do you think that carried more over from singleness or like from family, or was that more of just like a
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I think it's kind of this idea. I think it's a human thing. I don't know if there was any root to it specifically, but I think a human thing sometimes we expect someone to develop and grow and become better, become a better person themselves. Because I think we have the expectation in ourselves. And so we put that on someone else, and then we're disappointed by that. But
I guess that is one thing to bring up, like the idea that you can play God in a relationship and change somebody. And
tried that.
Because like,
and the term for it, some people take it to an extreme and they call it missionary dating, where it's like, does this person really like where they need to be spiritually? It's like, no, but like they have a good heart and we're going to try our best. I think sometimes people settle really, really low. And they assume, but they have a good heart. Yeah, they come to church with me. They're going to be totally okay. And then actually, the crazy thing about the lie you believe is that actually that this person is going to keep growing and that they're showing you where they're really at. But really what they're doing is they're showing you their best foot. So like in marriage and engagement, in a relationship, you're really seeing someone's best foot forward. Like that's the most self-controlled they're going to be.
Yeah.
That's the most like reserved and gracious they're going to be. So like you go out and we eat a meal together and I'm like, hey, let's share it. Like that's the most gracious I'm going to be. Because after marriage, it's like, yo, that's my food. Get your own food. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes people don't realize like, oh wow, like he's such a gentleman. It's like, yo, that's like the max of the goodness that I have is what I showed. And then it's like, they're going to keep growing. So like, they're here, but I really need them to be an 8. Right now they're like a 5, but look, they're so close.
So essentially like what you see, just dial it back like 25, 50%.
Yes,
and that's actually
a solid 50%. Because you really don't know who someone is until pressure starts to like hit them.
I think that's the old nature habit to change someone. And I'm so thankful because there was a time in my life the Lord specifically started to speak to me about the power of one person being changed, healed, transformed. And that really is what helped your transformation. Like, wouldn't you say?
Big time. Because
I finally realized, if it never changes, then I got to get somewhere in life. Like I got to go on this journey myself. And so, but it's amazing because when you go on that journey yourself, it becomes a testimony to the people that are closest to you because real transformation is what your spouse says about you. It's not about the people that see you.
And privately, right?
Right,
privately.
Right. It's like it really comes down to what does your spouse say about you? How are you at home? What do your children say about you? And I think that's the most powerful testimony. And for me, I just decided that I was going to go on that journey. And when I did, it was funny because that is what helped bring Vic's transformation.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you did kind of in our marriage that really caused transformation for me, and it was a lesson for me of how I can actually even be a support to you. And then, like I started to blossom because of how you were behaving towards me. And then as I became that, then I was able to even bring some life and help you to blossom. And so it's kind of like this chain reaction. But I think one of the things that we think that, if I just let my spouse know where they're kind of broken, missing, and if I point out all of their flaws, then they'll be motivated to change. I think that's a lie we believe big time. And so we think it's our job and our duty to actually like to vocalize everything that isn't like good in character and this and that.
Right.
And I think after a few years, I mean, we were in Ventura probably for a couple of years already. So there's probably 5, 6, 7 years into marriage, maybe, probably at least 6 years into marriage. I think Anastasia just was like, almost gave up, like, man, Vic's not going to change. I'm going to stop telling him where he needs to change. And I'm just going to actually pray and let the Lord bring him a revelation. Because I think you realize that I was so harsh towards myself, and then it overflowed into you, and then it overflowed into like London being a young girl. And even the way I started parenting her, London's almost 8 now, but she was like 2.
Yeah.
6 years ago, like I was like not happy with where I was, just like how I was treating you, London. Like I was giving you guys the leftovers. And I think I remember you praying, like you stopped like addressing me, like, babe, like you need to give it time, attention, this and that. Like instead of addressing it, I think one year you're just like, Lord, I'm just going to pray from like, God, Vic needs a revelation of the love of the Father. And Anastasia wrote that in her journal and started really actually just like praying that I would encounter the love of the Father. And I remember when she stopped talking and the Lord started giving me revelation, like that changed my world. Because like when she would give me correction, I would take it offensively, like, well, I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? Fine. Like it would put this wall between us. But when the Lord started correcting me, because he knows the approach, right? Like that caused a lot of revelation, transformation in my life. And I think that taught me a lesson for you too, that I think one of the biggest lessons in marriage I learned is that I can either talk to my wife about where I think she should improve, or I can talk to the Holy Spirit. And he's so much better at talking to my wife than I am. And that there's so much that his approach, he's very gracious, he's very kind, he's very gentle, and he knows how to speak to us. And so I think sometimes we think it's our job to see growth in someone rather than like give them space, love on them, and let the Holy Spirit bring that correction. So I think as we both started to do that in marriage, that was revolutionary for us. I think if we ever get stuck in marriage, I think it's when we start taking on the role of the Holy Spirit in each other's lives and start being like point to stuff. And it causes like, tension.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think it's more of like between you two, a conversation that's very honest and truthful, but at the same time, maybe not trying to correct in the moment, but just like conveying how you feel and then kind of giving space? Or like, how does that look like, especially when it comes to figuring out disagreements, or someone recognizes an issue in somebody.
Right.
And so how do you deal with it? Do you deal with it in the moment? Do you give time? Like
We're very in the moment people.
So like
we want to talk through everything. Yeah.
Let's figure this out right now, and we're not going to bed until that kind of thing.
It's funny because Vic and I I think we've helped set other marriages free, because a lot of times people in marriages, when they're struggling, they feel like they have to struggle alone and then show.
And no one knows.
Yeah, and then show the best version of themselves to everyone else. And our roommates know. They knew all of our shenanigans.
Yeah, a good amount of our marriage, we actually had roommates.
Because we just were like, we're going to be open about this. And I think that really helped set people free in the sense that they felt safe with us to come to us. And so I think anytime there's any kind of disagreement, we're not afraid to tackle it there and then, because we respect each other enough to where we can handle the tension, but it's also served as even just openness, openness and transparency
it probably takes a lot of maturity. I'm sure that like early on, maybe did you guys ever try doing that, like sitting down? And
I was really awkward about it. I was like, we're not talking about this. We're pretending everything is good.
Oh, okay.
And I'll at the table
we've evolved to talk through stuff.
We have. Yeah. And at the table with people,
I would be more the one like, I need to talk about it now, and you'd be more like, give me space, don't talk to me. Right. And you would kind of run, right?
And figure this out over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've learned, and I think you brought up a couple different things there. I think there's a couple principles there. I think when it comes to disagreements, miscommunications, communication, I think you have to communicate. You have to get on the same page. Yeah. When it comes to you're seeing an issue in the person, I think that's when you actually, instead of addressing it. So I think miscommunications or communication must happen, but fixing the person is what I think we should actually not our job.
Being content with who the person is now.
Yes. And the way that, like, if I see that Anastasia needs to grow into something, instead of speaking to what she's not, if I speak to who she is becoming, because someone will always grow to what you speak to. Whatever you speak to will rise up. And so if I speak to insecure Anastasia, I'm going to see more of that. If I speak to confident Anastasia, I'm going to see more of that. So whatever you speak to. So if I'm seeing a lack somewhere, it doesn't take a genius to be like, hey, you're really frustrated all the time.
Right.
Like, that's not going to help the situation to call that out. She probably knows that. I know that. What's going to help is actually when she does show patience or this or that. I'm like, wow, babe, like I really have seen you develop, like how much you're growing and just the way, how patient you are, how gentle you are. Like, and I think as we started to encourage the opposite and find moments to encourage and speak life, we saw the most fruit in our life. Because I think that's what the Holy Spirit does to us. Because like sometimes we think the Holy Spirit points to all of our sins and all of our issues. And actually, he's convicting the world of their unbelief. But for believers, he's actually convicting us of our righteousness. Because whatever he speaks to rises up. So as the Holy Spirit speaks to our righteousness, we become more like him. And I think in marriage, sometimes we do the opposite. We speak to the brokenness, hoping the brokenness will go away, when we're just putting more pressure on a wound, and it's not healing. It's actually getting worse. And so I think one of the things that we've learned is that you call someone like Abraham said, he spoke to things that were not as though they already were.
Right.
You speak to the dry bones, and you don't call them dead. You call them to life. And I think that is a huge principle for us.
2 Corinthians 5, Paul talks about evaluating one another, no longer by the flesh, but seeing each other by the Spirit. And I think that was key too, wouldn't you say?
Huge.
It's seeing, like what you're saying, seeing each other as if we were already. And even with, purpose and empowerment and all these different things we want our spouses to do. Oftentimes as wives, we don't know how to motivate our husbands, but because we're doing it the wrong way, instead of getting the Holy Spirit's eyes on it and saying, Holy Spirit, how can I speak life in this area? Not how can I, change him in this area, but how can I speak life and allow, God to do that.
And that's the whole idea even behind prayer. Is that you're not just praying for the Holy Spirit to correct the person, but you're actually praying like, Lord, open my eyes so that I can see them how you see them. Because when I start seeing Anastasia the way God sees her, I'm now going to speak.
Melt.
Yes, I do. I mean, absolutely. Because you, not only by the Spirit, but by the flesh and by the soul, you're amazing. In every way.
Oh, stop.
But especially when I see you by the Spirit now, instead of like overanalyzing, being critical, I can actually, speak to that stuff.
Because you're honoring truth over what you visibly see.
Exactly. Over the fact. You're actually speaking to truth, who she is by the Spirit, rather than the facts of like what she's becoming. And
so because of like obviously honor within marriage, that activated a lot of things, because obviously honoring activates people. Because it creates like an expectation, but it's for people to like grow into.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like this is where I see you're at, right? And so through your marriage, you guys honored one another. And so because of that, I mean, both of you guys have thrived. Both of you guys are like living your best life.
Absolutely.
When we learned honor, that's when we started to thrive like crazy. Honoring each other's gifts, honoring each other's anointings, honoring each other's strengths, even in marriage. Like there's certain things like even from the soul realm, like parent, that she's stronger. There's certain things like organizationally or finances or whatever it may be that she's stronger. And instead of being like, well, that makes me less than, being like, wow, I'm so glad I have a partner that's strong here, that I don't have to be strong in every area. I can just have my own strengths. And I think before you almost are like, well, if she's strong in this, that means I stink. I'm garbage. What's wrong with me? And it's like, no. Like fullness doesn't come on a person. Fullness comes on the body of Christ. And so the different members. So I think that is huge.
Yeah. Because if you only focus obviously on the problems and the lack, like what I kind of feel like what happens is the gifting or the talent starts to recede and kind of hides itself and like hides away. And eventually if it happens long enough, it'll just disappear.
Yes.
Like it just goes away. And the passion goes away. And so obviously because of honor, you kind of launched into like leading up to this like women's ministry, right?
Yeah.
Where did that start? Because obviously, was the purpose behind it was it to reach women in a similar like story, like who had a similar story?
Yeah, I think honestly our entire life together led up to it, because now that I think back, Wild is just a bigger picture of what
So
God.
wild is what?
Wild, yes, it stands for Women in Leadership Development,
Yes,
not just
it's an acronym.
Wild Women.
Yeah. Wild. And just
Although
for
we are.
the listeners to describe. So
Right.
probably how many years ago did you go to like a wild group or a small group? It was like a 10
Well,
week
yeah, I was
journey.
going to say that there was a group that I had attended that I kind of picked up this idea from, but obviously in the development process in the last year, it kind of became so much more than that small group that I
Yes,
attended.
for sure.
But I think honestly, it's not even about what it is now. It's the journey leading up to it. And when I think back, it's those moments that the Lord just reminded me this week of how many moments Wild was unseen for so many years. It was like taking, those broken women into my home, like leading them into healing and freedom. And now it's just on a bigger scale and everybody sees it. And they're like, oh, how did you do this? This is so awesome. Like, I want to do something like this.
Let me tell the backstory a little bit, because
yeah.
most people don't know what you're involved with right now.
Well, I'll explain.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
No,
Got it.
I'm getting there, I promise.
Got it, okay.
So long story short, moving here, that was when God really started to highlight specifically giving me a bigger vision for seeing a lot of women developed at the same time, because I'm like, okay, how can we do this bigger and faster and help see a bigger result? And so that's when this whole idea kind of came into play. And we were actually in Europe resting. And when you rest, God does a lot of great things.
Yeah, this was like not this summer, but the last summer.
Yes.
So summer of 2019, we were in Europe right before we moved here to the Northwest.
Right. And so it was funny because we went on this sabbatical and felt like we were going to like do something together, write a curriculum, and I just kept telling Vic, I'm like, we're going to be doing something, like, okay, we just have to, carve out this time and just sit down and like write together or do something. And the whole time I thought it was going to be together, but really as I was going on these walks every single morning, we were somewhere in the Swiss Alps in Austria, and the Lord just kept giving this idea to me of, I want you to develop women on a bigger scale. And at the time, obviously we were in transition. We hadn't even moved to the Northwest yet. And I had no idea what it would look like, but I just kept seeing this picture of just multiple women going through these courses. And specifically what Wild is, it's why I'm so passionate about it is because it's a 9-week program, but it really helps women go on a journey and discover their purpose through their own story. It's like, it's not something I need to pick up, not all these giftings I need to develop. It's more like recognizing and looking inward to what God has already given you. And so the idea really was birthed last summer. And then when we moved and I kind of, was thinking, I don't know who's going to do this. Nobody really knows what this is. And I just started throwing this idea out to some women. And here we are on our third
semester.
third round.
Yeah.
And honestly, Israel, the testimonies, because the whole purpose of Wild in the end, there's something we do at the end called a passion project. And women go on this journey, and as they're discovering the Lord and identity, and as they're discovering their purpose, they end up with this project, and it actually just happens to them because they go on this journey. It's not something that they even have to search for. And so we've had like nonprofits launch, like small businesses, women that just dreamed of small businesses being open, not just like within the church and not just ministry, but ideas that they thought that they could never achieve because they were limited, because they were a woman, they were a mom of 5 kids, and they thought they were.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting perspective to bring up, just because I think there is a vacancy.
Yeah.
Like there is a vacancy in and I think in the whole nation, or maybe even globally, there's just a vacant seat that women aren't filling.
Right.
And so I think the world recognizes it, or just like, we'll just say Western civilization, right? Because it's a major topic right now, is that there's a lack of woman presence. Yeah. And so the world's perspective to attack that is to shame and put down, like this shame and this honor culture, right?
Right.
But what I think needs to happen is honoring and empowering, so we can, rather than like, it's not that even men need to come down, but I think it's acknowledging like what we're missing by there being a vacancy.
Yes.
By what is missing from not just church, but the community, as far as businesses and family and in
Yes.
academics, whatever it is, like there's a perspective that's missing. There's a different way of approaching things that's missing. Communication is different between men and women. Just that whole process is different. And so, like, I guess it brings up the question, why empower women, right? Because before you can even approach like what do you do, how should we approach it, it's more important to acknowledge and understand why we're doing something.
Right. Oh,
So, because I'm all for it too. Like I really believe in empowering, because I think that there are a lot of areas that, because it's a partnership too, right? It's not men or women, it's a partnership between the two. And so both are meant to fill the gaps of inadequacies between both. And so when you only have one performing, the other isn't. And so you have whatever 50% that's not being taken care of.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I guess
Vic can kind of give you the theological view on this, but I think it's fascinating because if you go through the Gospels, how many interactions Jesus has with women is powerful, right?
Yeah.
I think that if anybody was controversial for that day and age, it was Jesus. Okay, look at the woman that came with the alabaster jar, to be in the presence of all those men, to weave her way into being at his feet. Like, I'm talking controversial stuff, but Jesus never put limits on whether it was a woman or a man. Like at the woman at the well, same thing. And I think I have never felt that limit, specifically because I think Jesus never put that limit. So for me, like, my theology is, people have a lot of opinions, with the biblical perspective of it. But when I look at Jesus, I feel like he wants me to be everything that he has put on the inside of me without a limit. And so I think you're right. There are so many, actually there's a lot of, even with feminism, there's this other extreme of just, brokenness in women trying to become something or reach something. And I think it's coming out of also insecurity.
Yeah, I think another topic is even, because you brought up the well,
Right.
Like, you wouldn't see a man going out midday to collect water, even if he had 5 wives, right? You wouldn't see that. So the treatment between a man and a woman in that time was like, well, if a man had 5 wives, he can still go out when everybody else gets water because it's culturally appropriate. But for a woman, it's the reverse opposite. It's you get ostracized, you get cast out, demonized. You are a scarlet, or a harlot.
Harlot.
Yeah, it's not a scarlet.
Harlot.
But a harlot.
I love it. Yeah, I think just to even touch on what you guys are talking about, I think the need to empower women, I think Jesus did it. He was in a culture where, like what you're talking about, where the put down women, ostracized them. But Jesus activated and empowered them and spoke of them. I think Paul was one that activated women. Sometimes people misunderstand a couple passages, like in 1 Corinthians or in Timothy, and they think that Paul silenced women, and actually nothing could be further from the truth. I can't wait to actually do like a teaching or maybe a mini book on that idea. But I think in this last day, where we're going to see part of the amazing move of God that's going to happen for globally, a huge part of it's going to actually be women. I know that for certain. I know that there's been, since almost like the beginning of time, almost like culturally, this suppression of women that is not in God's nature. It's not in God's heart. And as, because like, to me, it's almost as if like, is God the Father and God the Holy Spirit, is one less than the other? Does one serve the other? Or are they co-equal, co-eternal, co-existent, right? And so I think when we recognize that both sides, like all the parts of the Godhead are co-equal, and that from that Godhead came both male and female, and that in Christ, Paul says that there's neither male nor female, neither slave nor free, neither Greek nor Gentile. So
Yeah.
I think, or no, it's, Jew nor Greek, Jew nor Gentile. So I think when we recognize that, I think that's part of the movement of what God is doing in the earth. I think he's restoring the voice, the gifts, the calling, of women. And I'm really excited about that. Like, I think the Lord has shown that to me, and I've been able to, even be a champion for that, for my wife, for others. And I want to even as a Bible teacher, as a Bible guy, I want to be a champion for that, because I really believe that's the nature of God. It's what Jesus did. I believe it's what Paul did. But yeah, so I think I love that the Anastasia was really kind of at the foundation of birthing this program, this ministry called Wild Women in Leadership Development, and now takes about 20 to 25 women per rotation, and really from healing to freedom to confidence to communication to then activating them to their voice. Like, you're really giving a voice to a huge group of people that are supposed to transform the world. And I think that's so beautiful now to see that this just here in Vancouver, Portland area, that now the third group of women of right now there's 24, 25 women that are registered. And already the fourth group is already is that full already?
Yeah. Well,
So
we're expanding.
You're expanding.
So
and you're going to launch a couple groups at the same time. Yeah. But there's already a lot of women that, I'm realizing that there's such a lack and a gap in this area.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful because we've never had to advertise it once. Women talk. The power of a woman's testimony it bleeds through everything. So as they receive their healing and transformation, and it bleeds into their marriage and their children, they quickly they quickly get so loud, and I have all these women contacting me. I'm like, where?
That you don't know
what?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I told my neighbor about it, and she told her friend about it, and now they all want to join. And I think that's just even the beauty of we see the same thing in the Gospels. When Jesus was resurrected,
it's providing so much value.
Yes,
it provides a uniqueness, in the form of propping up women.
Yeah.
That you can't find anywhere else. And so it doesn't even matter who they are or what they believe. Right. Everybody wants it. It's such a desirable thing.
Right.
Because it's not just a Christian thing. It's not just
absolutely.
It's not like a Muslim thing. It's not like a Hindu thing. It's not even an agnostic thing. It's simply like a human condition thing to put down somebody.
Wow.
Right. And so naturally there's always going to be a group trying to push something down, pushing a people down, oppression. And so it's such an attractive thing that even personally, I believe that it will draw people in who don't have the same values, but because of what it's providing to them, the freedom, people will be drawn to be quote unquote discipled by it. And so what it does is it's generating people who want to be discipled and are willing to disciple, which is the best combo you can have. And it's necessary to have people who want to change and all that stuff. And so I think when someone goes through something their whole life and then they hear that there's an alternative solution, for whatever reason, it sparks something in them and they get really passionate about it and they want to just go after it.
Right.
And so for women, I think that is a thing very few women feel like they can just go do whatever they want, or every possibility is endless, that you can go do whatever you want. And so I think opening up that conversation, hey, you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There are infinite possibilities or opportunities for you.
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest thing I think too is a lot of women that we've had even come through, they've, been successful at something, they've built their careers, but the problem was that all their identity was in that. And now, for whatever reason, they've hit the top there and they're like, well, what do I do? Who am I? What have I obtained? Yeah. And it really takes anybody back to that place of, okay, who is God and who am I in him? and discover your real purpose, right? Because everybody's searching for purpose in life. And I think that's the beauty of creating that space, is really allowing anybody, like you said, it doesn't even matter. I mean, we had a girl join that she pretty much got saved the week before, and she's in the same group going through this at the same pace. But there's just this beauty of, hey, it doesn't matter what you've achieved, it doesn't matter what you've done or haven't done, or maybe you're just a mom in survival mode.
I think even when you find fullness in who you are as a person, that's really when you find purpose.
Absolutely.
Because then your blinders are off and you're not so focused on self, like insecurities. You're focused more on, now you're focusing on other people.
Yeah.
Because the attention's been drawn off yourself, and now your eyes are everywhere and you're looking what's around you, what you can touch and what you can do. And so now you're really stepping into your calling.
Right.
And so that I think is super important, just because in America, we're super about individualism, right? So we're focused on us. And so it's funny because the first question, like they ask in kindergarten, is like, what's your dream? What do you want to do? Like what's your purpose? And that's the first question. But typically our purposes are self-satisfying.
Absolutely.
And so, but when you're satisfied on the inside, you're not looking to satisfy yourself. You're looking to satisfy others now.
Yeah, totally. And just that thought of, we go through this surrender topic, and it's just, there's so much beauty in surrender, because when you allow that seed to go into the ground, Jesus said, unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, it can't produce fruit. And I think that's the beauty of surrendering that purpose to the Lord and watch him awaken it. And so I think for me, that's the probably the thing that excites me the most, is when something is surrendered, it's that much more powerful. Now it's not just a seed in your hand, it's going to be a forest, and the lives that are going to be impacted, it's for eternity and endless.
Yeah. I think, back to a question even you asked earlier about, like, so what are some of the lies we believe coming into marriage? I think one of the lies, especially like for Anastasia being a Slavic woman, sometimes that's almost
Slavic woman.
That's
I love it.
Something that's almost like put on that, like, I don't know, subculture of people here in America, is a lie that your greatest calling is to be a wife and a mom. And I think that's a cool calling. And I think being a mom or raising your kids is good, but I don't think that's a calling for women. I think
or
that's a
vice
calling.
versa.
Yes.
In America, it's you have to have a career.
Yes, exactly. So, but the lie you come into is like, so to me, it's like, hey, your calling is to be a mom. It's like, wait, I thought the dad and the mom were supposed to raise the kids. I thought that was the calling of both.
Yeah, it's this either or thing.
It's either or, but like, I think one of the lies is that, like, okay, I found my purpose. And I think sometimes women, maybe Slavic women more, I don't know, maybe women in general, hide behind like the wife and the mom, and they never really activate like the call of God at a higher level for them. Yeah. And I think sometimes that almost gets suppressed because there's not even a voice that's given. And I think that's one of the lies that we believe, that like that's our only purpose. And like, that's one of the things that we do on this earth, but that's not the only thing. God doesn't, we're not just here to be a baby birthing, baby raising chamber, but each of us has something that we can bring. Right. And so just speaking of like,
that's good.
A woman that like, there's more.
But you know, what's interesting is I remember a time where that's all I wanted, because I could hide behind that, because my purpose and the dreams that God put inside of me freaked me out, because it was me, you know, even getting on a mic, it freaked me out. So I'm like, God, I just want to be a wife and a mom. And
That's
then
my calling.
Right.
Because you have the security of your home. I mean, I don't have kids, but I can imagine that like you feel safe.
Yeah, we had our first child. Well, it took us a while, and then we had our first child, and our second one didn't come. I'm like, oh God, I have to do something with my life. And I think even the beauty of just even seeing women come into Wild, a lot of them are in that place where they've raised the kids, they've done everything in the home, and now they're like, what do I do with my life? Yeah.
Their calling is over. Yeah.
So this loss of identity in a sense, and they're rediscovering that, and that's even more beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting that people take that up as an identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or the opposite, like they'll take up their career as an identity, and now they're like, I can't sacrifice my career or my dreams to get married, because now all of a sudden, because in a marriage and as a parent, that's a level of sacrifice. I think marriage is like almost like maybe elementary school of sacrifice. And then when you have kids, all of a sudden now you're like you go from elementary to like graduate school of like death to self and sacrifice. And I think sometimes like in our society, sometimes like, you know, here in America, like people so value individualism, career path, this and that sometimes it's like, no, why would I get bogged down in a marriage and in a family when that's going to deactivate me? So I think there's like, sometimes you can like hide behind one or the other rather than the beauty of like, hey, like I get the privilege of being a wife and a mom, but I'm also more than that. Or like I get the privilege of, you know, whatever, like, you know, speaking from the woman's perspective, but like, or, yeah, so there's the opposite side, but I just feel like sometimes we can hide behind like what you're talking about, like hide behind an identity and not really do everything that God's called us to do. It's easy to do that.
Absolutely.
One thing as well, I wanted to kind of almost like briefly kind of overview your story, because I think it's so powerful. And I think a lot of people can relate to this idea of, because like to me, your journey of your life from childhood to now is a journey of the enemy trying to suppress your voice, destroy you, and then not working. And then you discovering your voice, discovering your purpose, and now really being a tool for the Lord. Not a tool, because God doesn't do tools, but he does partners. But like really you partner with the Lord to bring a lot of transformation and healing to families, to women, to whatever, to a lot of things like that. But like I think people will relate to the journey, and I'll kind of maybe summarize it, and then you can go into parts that you want to. But like, again, since you first were able to start talking, I don't know, how old is a child when they talk? It's been a while since we've had a child. Two, so close to 2. So the enemy tries to attack your voice and your confidence, so you start stuttering. And that's from 2 to what, 15-ish or so? Yeah.
And I remember dreaming up my careers. I'm like, what can I do where I don't have to speak? Isn't that sad?
Yeah, that is sad.
What can I find myself? Yeah.
So like from a young age, the enemy attacks your voice, because that's part of the calling of your life, actually. In many ways, your voice is a huge part of your calling. I think everyone has a voice. Everyone has a voice in them. Everyone has, life in them to give to others. And so, but yeah, and then probably at the age of like 6 or so in your life, now you're going through a situation where it's like there's abuse, and probably for a period of 10 years, you go through
sexual abuse.
Sexual abuse in your childhood, which is again a silencing of who you are in your voice.
Yeah, confusing, silencing.
Yep, confusing, silencing, destructive, right?
In our culture, right? It's not something that it's taboo to
to bring it up or talk about it. Yeah,
discuss.
And it was, and even what happened to you, you went through completely alone and weren't really able to talk about it or even start a healing journey. And then by the age of 18 or so, you go through a time where you have an encounter with the Lord. You get freedom and deliverance from those horrific things that happen in your life. But the healing journey doesn't start. So now the enemy has done his work. And now on the outside, you may have influence and kind of have a voice through maybe singing or worship or small group leading. But really, who you really are is still silenced and suppressed through some of the trauma and brokenness.
Right, because you got to walk out the healing.
Yes.
The healing is practiced in walking it out with people. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about story, the parable, just because so many people haven't even told their story. Yeah. They are still
silenced.
Yeah, they're still silenced, and they may even have a voice
the full calling
to a degree.
Hasn't even started yet.
Yes, they may have a voice to a degree. They may have a platform, and they're talking about important things, but their story has not been heard yet. And it would be the enemy's way, because ultimately it's amazing how many times I can share my story. It's almost like the Lord just leads me there, and how many people get set free from that. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter what profound truth I share, it's still the story that they're deeply, deeply connected to. And it's like, well, if you could speak up about it, maybe I have a chance to share for the first time. And so I can't even tell you how many women have shared their journeys with me for the first time. And so absolutely.
And it's interesting because your story is either a tool for healing, or it's either a weapon against yourself. And
Wow.
you'll either hear two responses, like, you need to hear my story, or, but you haven't heard my story.
Yeah,
And it's funny
wow.
that those two are brought
Yeah.
up because
Wow.
one is like putting yourself down
Because of your story.
exactly because of your story. And so you put pressure on your life. And the
Right.
other is
A springboard.
Have you heard my story? Yeah. And you're pushing yourself up. And so that's what I feel too with the podcast, is that like not everyone can be on the podcast, right? It's just not
Right.
possible. But everybody should feel empowered to release
That's
a story
good.
because the Bible shows that one of the most effective ways to reach an audience, to reach a people, is through your story.
Absolutely.
And it's worldwide. It doesn't even matter what you believe, but the story, what you've been through, what you can share, and how you've defeated it is the most effective way, because till creation, everything has been a story.
Come on.
It's one of the things that's stayed consistent since the beginning is the
Right.
story, right?
That's beautiful.
And even just
Back to my timeline, babe.
Yeah, back to picking up on your story. But this is because this is so good. Like, I think so from childhood, from 2, the enemy's trying to silence you, suppress you. Then at 6, for 10 years, suppressing you through that trauma. At 18, there's freedom, but there's not healing, and your story doesn't even begin really.
Right.
And then we're married, and then for the first few years of our marriage, you're still not walking out full healing yet, because there wasn't that like vulnerability to really talk about it and actually be whole. Because sometimes we think time will heal all things or sweep something under the rug. When actually James 5:16 says that as you confess your issues, your faults, your sins one to another, that you're healed, right? Forgiveness we already got from the Lord, but the healing happens in that journey
Right.
of opening up. And so I think like in Ventura, when we spent 9 years there in Southern California, you started down a journey of really like getting your voice back. And I remember even sometimes like knowing that there's more in you and calling that out, but there was like fear. So like at 2, there was a fear to talk. At 5 or 6, there was a fear of the nighttime. There was a fear. And then like you go into this wild group, and at the very end of it is a passion project for you.
Right.
And one of your greatest fears was like, my voice doesn't need to be heard. I have nothing to say. And so you actually jump off the cliff off of your fears and say, you know what? I'm actually going to write a song. Because like that's something that God's put in you for a long time.
Right.
But nothing activated it. But
Yeah.
here, all of a sudden, now you
it's
become
true.
vulnerable in front of a group of people, and you say, hey, these are my fears that the enemy's tried to silence me since I was a kid. And then here you do the very thing that you're most afraid of, which is to share your story in your voice.
Right.
And it was crazy how like you had written some songs and you go in to record, and the Holy Spirit's like, nope, you're not going to record anything. What am I going to record? My recording's in an hour or whatever. And it was like, sit down and write.
35 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 35 minutes, a song, your first song that you ever released and your most popular one, is titled No Longer Afraid. And it didn't come from your artistic writing, but it came as a download by the Spirit of God.
It's just like a
And it
life
was-
journey, story unfolded. Yeah.
It unlocked for you, I feel like, your voice to say like, I am not going to be suppressed by fear
Yeah.
anymore. Like what happened to me at 2, from 6 to 16, what happened to me throughout my life, like isn't going to stop me, isn't going to suppress me. Like I'm no longer afraid. And like, I remember you released that that was your passion project.
Right.
And you wrote that song and released it. And then after that, wrote a few more. And actually crazy enough, tomorrow, September the 25th, you're releasing another song. I Exalt. I'm super excited about that. But I just want to say how
Nice little insert, babe.
yeah,
It's good.
because we're speaking of songs, but
No, you're right. I think for me, it's beautiful how it's almost like the song was brewing for so long that it needed that pressure to just like come forth, that 35 minutes before. And I remember sitting at the piano weeping, being like, Lord, I have nothing to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And it's just amazing to me that still to this day, the testimonies that flood in of just people that don't know me will just write me it'll pop
good.
up on their Spotify, and they'll be like, this guy actually from Amsterdam a couple weeks ago contacted me, and he like on Instagram, he was like, I had no I had no idea that a song could minister that deeply to me. He was going through some really heavy anxiety attacks, and it was playing on repeat every night for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And he was like, that song brought me out of that heavy, dark season. And so I think it's so powerful that you even share that. I totally forgot, but just even those small steps of allowing, like being obedient, right? And like stepping out in those moments, I think, it's powerful.
And I think sharing your
profound.
journey, sharing your pain, being open, not just with like me, because like years into our marriage, you started opening up about some dark places that you'd never shared, because you'd shared a little bit, but then it got deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you became vulnerable with me, with other people, it led really to your freedom. And I think that sometimes we think that like we can suppress stuff and it'll go away, but really what catapulted you into, like, the enemy tried to suppress your voice as a child, but the
Right.
Lord's like, no, I need your voice.
Right.
And now you started singing, and singing No Longer Afraid. And now you travel and speak. And now you're leading a wild group, wild women in leadership development groups where women are being activated, their voices, because their voice is needed. And I think that's so powerful that you are needed in the body of Christ. Your voice is needed, whoever you are, whatever your story is, that you have something to give, and the Lord is not done. And, like sometimes we're suppressed by things, and we think, well, that won't work out for me because of this, that, or that, or that, or that, because my marriage, because of my childhood, because of my education, because of my parents, because of whatever. And nothing can really stop, I think, except for us and our mindset can really stop that. And so,
Absolutely.
I love it, guys.
yeah.
That was great. That was some good juice. Gold nuggets galore. And
Gold nuggets
it might have seemed
galore.
like Vic was talking a lot, but Vic was honoring the whole time. And so that's why it was so good. And that's part of why, like, that the marriage works so well, is because of the honor. And so we honor both of you guys, that you guys are leaders to all people. It's not just women for you. I mean, you're
Absolutely.
impacting everybody who deals with fear, anxiety, like lack of self-worth. And, so you guys together as partners are doing a really good thing, and you're changing the Northwest. And so really grateful for you guys coming on, and we'll probably do it again. And what I'm thinking is that people are going to want to maybe see a live. So I'm thinking we should do an Instagram live.
Yeah, that'd
And
be
that
fun.
way people can ask questions, because I'm 100% positive people have questions, and
Yeah.
people
That's good.
want to have, particular instances and things that they want to be answered,
Right.
to help them with their story right now. And so thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, bro.
And
Thank you for having us.
hoping to do it again. Thanks,
Come
Yeah,
on.
guys.
that's awesome.
God bless.
Bro, let me ask you a
what's up?
question.
What?
Whether
What do
we
you wanna-
include this or not, but
We'll probably include it.
Why don't we ask you a question? Because you interview so many people, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
juice and nuggets in you. But what would you say as far as someone that? Because I think even in thinking about your life and your journey, like you were believed in, I think, by your parents and given a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
But how did you discover kind of your voice, your calling, your purpose? And then like, what would be the advice of like, maybe someone has a different journey than you, but like, what's a key for someone to be empowered and to step out? Maybe some of the things that you overcame, some of the fears, some of the risks that you were willing to take. Like, what are a couple of keys that you've learned in your journey?
I think it's important, because not everyone has a family structured around totally trusting God with their child, and saying like, hey, like he can kind of just go, like we trust you.
We trust you
what
to the
you're doing.
Lord. Yeah.
Exactly. We trust you to the Lord. And so from birth, I was trusted to the Lord. Though I never stepped foot in a church until I was 16, my life had been entrusted and dedicated to the Lord. Even within my name, like there was a level of trust and expectation for my life. So what I would say is like for people who don't have a family that started that way, or where from birth you had that around you, what I would say is it's important to find people around you who are okay with you failing. That's the biggest thing. Is
So good.
failure is actually one of the best gifts from God, in my opinion, because when you surround praise around failure and adoration towards God, you begin to see failure in a different way, right? And so you stumble and you say, wow, thank you, God, that I got to go through this now So like this spirit of optimism and expectation for better in the future, right? Like the best is yet to come. And so you're like, thank God that I went through this today and not tomorrow or in 5 years, because what you're doing in me now, or whatever evil was done to me, you're going to reverse it and you're going to turn it into a blessing for my life. And so I can know and be confident that everything I go through now, I have a reason to be optimistic because the future is brighter. And you are taking me to a place where everything I've been through, everything I've encountered is forming my character and my personality and how I approach things. So I think number one is surrounding yourself with people who are okay with you failing.
And will encourage you in that.
And they won't judge you, but they'll only reinforce you and you know that they love you. And so that's a huge one. The next one is changing your perspective on failure and being okay with it, because no successful person didn't go without failure. Right? It's actually the people who failed the most in life end up being the most successful because they have a revelation of what it means to fail. It means that it's okay if you fail. It's when you repeat it over and over and you don't evolve from it.
You don't learn from it. Yep.
Exactly. You don't learn from it. And so if we have a perspective like, I want to learn from this, this is you guiding me, God, this is you changing me, then it'll be a blessing for our life. It can be a curse, but it can also be a blessing for our lives. And so understanding that, having the revelation for that. And then I think the last thing is my parents always put an image in my mind and said, they always said, like, there will always be great, like there will be greatness in your life, right? And so putting an expectation for greatness in your life and never putting a cap on it. And so from birth saying, like, even before I can consciously hear a word, greatness being spoken over you.
Come on.
And so whether you have a person in your life who can do that or not, you yourself can be the greatest advocate for yourself.
Come on.
And so you're never alone because you yourself can be your advocate. And so having the perspective that I don't live where I'm at today, right? That I may be, like, we'll use finances as an example, like that I may be broke today, but if I feel like I'm called to be a millionaire one day, live and act out your life in the way you carry yourself in your character as if you're already there.
Come on.
But live practically in the way and make steps to move forward. And so what you're saying is, I'm okay with being content with who I am today, but I'm going to persistently desire to move forward, right? And so if you know the destination, it may take you 5 years, it may take you 10 years, but if you stay to the pathway that it's leading to, then you'll get there no matter what. And so having that faith that, like, whether it's 1 year or 10 years, I will get there if I continually believe and have faith in what I'm believing for, or whatever someone has spoken over you.
That's cool, bro.
And so that's kind of like what has carried me through from a long period of time. And it's really reassuring to know that there are people standing behind you.
Yeah.
And they're okay with you if you fail.
Yeah.
If you mess up.
Yeah.
If you struggle. And so I think that just provides a level of reassurance. But even if you don't have that, knowing that there are people who you've never met and they're believing for someone in your shoes to, grow and have, an understanding of that there's more to come for them.
It's really powerful, bro.
So good.
So the 3 things to help empower people are: surround yourself with people that are okay with you and will encourage you in your failure. Have a mindset that failure is your friend. It's a stepping stone. And then speak encouragement to yourself, prophesy to yourself, speak life over yourself. Because people may or may not do that, but you can speak to yourself. David spoke to his soul, like, be whole, my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. But I love that, bro. Yeah. Those are some nuggets, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. You
Love
pulled it on me. So thank you so much.
Yep. It's an honor.
We're gonna wrap this up because we want to honor time, and we hope, like, anyone who has questions, you can DM us, you can DM Vic, you can DM Anastasia.
Yep.
And we're gonna do a live, and I'm gonna volunteer them, and we're gonna do a live.
Hallelujah.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
We love you guys.
Love you, bro.
And stay encouraged.
Yes.
Thank you, Parable. We love you, Parable. Subscribe, join, share, do it.
Do it.